water bag wars where we can play with children from Upper Nelson Street and St. Paul Street. These were some of the traditions that brought us all together. We would laugh and joke as to who got cornered, and no one escaped the laughter just before the street lights came on, where our parents, mothers, fathers, grandparents would come look for us, and we would often have to beg and ask, 10 more minutes please. A place where good morning, good evening, ma'am, sir, thank you were always in our mouths, because we were visible and we were heard. We often heard the words, I love you, well done, and I am proud of you, from those we looked up to. We know that now youths in the community don't have the same respect and authority for others. Duncan Street, Queen Street, Nelson Street were gateways to love and a strong community where worries of returning home safely were never a thought on our minds. In those days, I can remember persons from St. Paul Street would be freely able to go on the beat-up to compete in small goal competitions, just like to take a sweat, because we knew no limitations. Duncan Street was a community where big dreams were forged, just as the challenges it faced. Growing up in a tight-knit community where they say the village raised the child, as a young man, education, sports, and a solid foundation with a fear of God played a vital role in my future. Attending Belmont Junior Secondary School, which back then was a school to frown upon. But that is where I found the love for playing cricket. And I played well enough to catch the eyes of Tranquility Government Secondary School, a school at the time which was seen to be one of the best schools in Port of Spain. I was fortunate to play cricket with the likes of Dwayne Bravo, Kyron Pollard, Mario Belcon, just to name a few. Yes, the same Tranquil we see videos of fights on social media. These schools were dedicated to providing education, faced their own challenges, but through persistence and determination, I overcame the obstacles that came my way. Education and sports were my weapon and my pathway to success and progress. Following my years of schooling, I began to play football with the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard as a young civilian when the opportunity of a lifetime presented itself to me, and I made the decision to serve the Defense Force, where I was able to make a lot of meaningful credentials and forge new friendships as I dedicated my life to protecting my fellow citizens, uphold justice, and fostering a sense of security to our nation. Today I sit here proudly as the founder of my own consultancy company, Tema Security Solutions and Consultations. While this journey was without challenge, it's an easy one. It was filled with challenges, setbacks, and moments of doubt, but something I learned from my community on Duncan Street: never give up. However, as I sit before you here, I cannot ignore the alarming trend that plagues our communities, which are gun violence and lack of opportunities. These issues are not isolated incidents or numbers on a report. This represents broken dreams, shattered lives, and broken homes. Then the question arises, what are the root causes of these issues? While it may be easy to single out one factor or entity, the reality is more complex. In my experience, I have witnessed two main reasons hindering the growth of youth in our community. It was invisibility and lack of opportunities. In my time in law enforcement and growing up on Duncan Street, conversation of visibility was often overlooked in any crime discussion and conversation for betterment within the youth. I also found that no one answered why young persons would resort to crime, guns, and gangs. But what I learned was that once they are feeling oppressed, unheard, and unaccepted, they will push back and do anything to become visible or accepted. For example, the saying of a village raise a child. But if the villages or villagers don't acknowledge or see the child will do everything in that village to burn it out, to feel the warmth of the village. Furthermore, the lack of opportunities available for our youth hinders the ability to flourish and grow. We often use the word opportunities loosely, but what does this really mean? What does opportunity zone? Allow me to give some examples today. Opportunity. No opportunity of a father figure. No opportunity to get help to do homework when you get home. No opportunity of sustainable employment. No opportunity of employment opportunities. No one to speak to when you are facing trauma or problems. No opportunity to go home to a house or a safe haven and your only version of a role model are the community leaders. We teach and say education is often the way. A great equalizer has now become a symbol of unattainable dreams for many. Our schools, which was once pillars, have failed to provide the necessary support and resources, leaving our youth in a circle of stagnation and no way out. There is also a generation and a general decline of family values, standards, and morality in the youths that need positive role models. Many young black men and women are often encountered with the stigma and preconception of being from Duncan Street, St. Paul Street, Besser Street, that you're a gangster. A person who just came out of jail with a prison record is often stifled with opportunity, even though they can work. The renovation of the Blue Diamond Steel Orchestra on George Street, the police and Duncan Street posts was also done with persons from these communities. While this opportunity was given to them, it was not an opportunity of sustainable income. I stand before you today, refusing to believe that there is no hope. I refuse to accept that this is our new reality, that our communities are doomed to be defined by violence and despair. Together, as a united community, invested in the well-being of our future generation, let's make them feel visible again. Let's give them the opportunity of sustainable income, homework centers, bring back trades to the community, and leave out the cameras. Because these youths would believe that, as they would say, it's a puppy show thing. Create a safe space for them once again to open up. By implementing these things, we can bring about change that we so desperately seek. It's time for us to rise up above the negative influence and provide our youth with opportunities. Let us make a stand, my fellow community members. This evening, as I sit before you here, I do so as Rene Enrique Rodriguez, a symbol of hope, resilience, and an active pursuit to a brighter future. As a testimony of Duncan Street, better can be done. Let's join forces, invest in our youth, for they hold the key to our opportunity and prosperity for the future. Together we can dismantle the barriers and numbers that confine our young minds, create a society that celebrates progress, positive values, and boundaries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Our theme today is crime affects everyone. And we have this platform and this forum to see how best we can make suggestions, raise matters. So I want to thank Mr. Rodriguez very much. From his presentation a short while ago, I think he identified two major points that we must pay attention to. And I want to thank him for sharing his experiences in some beautiful areas that have now become not as safe as they used to be. But those two that I can recall, and of course we are recording everything, so we'll take all suggestions. Of course we want from you in the audience as well. The first one he talked about was invisibility of young persons out there, that they are invisible. They are not recognized. But even more important, he talked about how we can overcome that invisibility with creating opportunities. And I was very happy to hear you, Mr. Rodriguez, outline several areas for opportunity. Yes, there's opportunity in education. There must be. You know, sometimes when we talk about fighting crime, people tend to concentrate on the legislative. Mr. Warner, you're very aware of that, and I welcome you for joining us. Gary is very aware of that too. You talk about fighting crime and everybody wants legislation. There are thousands of laws on our statute books. And has it stopped crime? No. Has it lessened the crime? No. And so we have to look at other areas and other things that we can do. And Mr. Rodriguez pointed out opportunity. So job opportunities, educational opportunities, opportunities to be recognized, to contribute and be, you know, a good patriotic citizen contributing to the development of our great land. So just again thank Mr. Rodriguez, and you can raise questions at the end. And I'll ask Nicholas to please introduce our second panelist.
Ladies and gentlemen, our second panelist this evening is the esteemed Mr. Gary Griffith. Mr. Griffith is a former Commissioner of Police of Trinidad and Tobago, having served a term in office for the period 18 August 2018 to August 2021. Between May 2010 and September 2013, he served as National Security Advisor to the Honorable Kamala Prasad-Bissessar, Prime Minister. He was subsequently appointed as Minister of National Security in Trinidad and Tobago in September 2013. Mr. Griffith was a member of the Trinidad and Tobago Defence Force for 15 years, where he attained the rank of captain in 1998. This attainment to the rank of captain was achieved in just 6 years, which remains an unprecedented achievement. He was the first military officer from this country to return home with the United Nations Peacekeeping Medal. He has also received the Efficiency Decoration Medal, EDM, for 12 years distinguished service, as well as the Meritorious Medal for duties performed during the 1990 attempted coup in Trinidad and Tobago. Let us welcome this evening Mr. Gary Griffith.
Hey, I love you too. Opposition Leader, the Honorable Kamala Prasad-Bissessar, fellow speakers, citizens of this country who are here to listen and to guide us. Members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. We are not here to give a sales pitch, as we've spent enough time knowing exactly what is not working. We are here today to work together to try to find the right solutions to provide our citizens with your most fundamental right, which is that of safety and security. Now, you know, in most professions, you will have the experts that will go ahead, do the research, and come up with the proper policies. As it pertains to national security, it is not that easy. You can have the experts, but what you require is what it is that is happening right now, with persons coming on the floor, listening to you, because the individuals on the ground, you are the ones who are affected. You are the ones who know what is happening. You are the ones that can assist in coming up and formulate a proper national security crime-fighting policy that can assist in reducing crime. And this is why we are here today. We are not here just to spit out crime plans. This is why in February last year, this started when I offered to assist the government because I realized they were unable to deal with the situation. The opposition leader, likewise, she did the same. It is unfortunate that other persons would not have the political maturity to understand that you put aside your political party card when it comes to doing what is right for the country. You must always be a patriot before being a politician. And I do thank Kamala Prasad Bisesa for what you have done. Because if it is you as a politician, you cannot put aside your hate, your bitterness, your anger, and your political bias to do what is right. Well, then you shouldn't be there. We are here today. We are here today, as I said, if we want to deal with this situation, the catalyst for crime reduction is the implementation of government policies. Now, there are three different aspects to reduce crime: primary, secondary, and tertiary. When I did my training with criminology at the University of Leicester, they showed us that. So, many people will come and say that we have to stop crime by dealing with society, dealing with parents, dealing with teachers, dealing with the community, and praying to God, as Ulla continues to do. But those things, yes, they are important. That is known as secondary crime prevention. Secondary crime prevention is putting systems and tools to turn persons away from a life of crime. Tertiary crime prevention involves the criminal justice system. I can spend the next 45 minutes speaking about the things that would have been achieved from 2010 to 2015 dealing with the criminal justice system by a Ministry of Justice being formed specifically to deal with the problems of recidivism. Because we have a high recidivism rate due to poor rehabilitation and the problems that we have in the criminal justice system. I can speak for another 45 minutes of the other ministries that we had from 2010 to 2015 through the Ministry of Sport, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Culture, the Ministry of Youth Affairs, different ministries that would have assisted to get young persons away from a life of crime. But these things take time. You will see the difference in a few years' time. What happens is that the way to reduce crime immediately is known as primary crime prevention. That is hard targeting, deterrence, a rapid response, high visibility, strong policing, good law enforcement. And you would have seen it. It is not coincidental that from 1991 to 1995, crime went up every single year. From 95 to 2001, crime went down almost every single year, to the point that it reached less than 100. From 2001 to 2010, it went up every year. From 2010 to 2015, it went down every year. From 2015 to 2023, it has gone up every year, except for the last 18 months when I was Commissioner of Police. So it shows the catalyst of crime reduction is the implementation of government policies. And again, going back, three critical posts. Well, it has a big part to play. It has to do with the Prime Minister, the Minister of National Security, and the Commissioner of Police. And you would have seen that. The Prime Minister doesn't need to be an expert as it pertains to crime. But when you look at it, you had one Prime Minister where in 2014, it was the highest reduction in serious crime in 31 years. And then, I didn't call names. And then, 7 years later, you had another Prime Minister with the highest spike in crime in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. And it says a lot. So by you thumping your chest to state that you are chair of the National Security Council, that is not what is required. What is required is to have a Prime Minister who is not a security expert, but has the capability to understand how to lead, how to manage, how to listen, how to support, how to delegate, and then to direct. And that is what we did in that National Security Council in 2010 to 2015, where we would have seen things such as the National Security Special Operation Group, the National Operations Center, the National Security Training Academy, 12 dormant vessels acquired for 1.2 billion less than the 2.4 billion OPVs, and also the situation of a rapid response unit. All of this played a part towards the highest reduction in serious crime, as I said, in 31 years. As Commissioner of Police, likewise, policies being driven from an emergency response patrol, an operational command center, a commissioner's command center, gender-based violence unit, GPS tracking on vehicles, training police officers in that customer service training so that you wouldn't have what you have seen in St. Joseph Police Station in the last few weeks, from phones being thrown, people being told where the police station is. Had I been Commissioner of Police, they would have been suspended immediately. And that is where it is that type of leadership is required, which is why that it is important that the public trust and confidence in the police is so important. In 2018, that public trust and confidence was 14% based on one commissioner. At the end of 2021, the public trust and confidence in the police was 59%, the highest rise in any arm of the public sector, and now it has gone down to 8%. So it is not the police service, it has to do with leadership, management, accountability, and measurement of performance. I want to make sure I stay within the 15 minutes before I get roped out. So I just want to say quickly, so we can come up with the policies, the plans, the political will. But there's something that must be done. You have to look at systems that will be taking place right now in Trinidad and Tobago. If we look right now, the majority of murders taking place have been by illegal firearms and by gangs. We could see 3,000 to 4,000 persons have been killed in the last decade by illegal firearms. Yet, the powers that be spend all of their times dealing with legal firearms. And that is where it is, you see sometimes political pettiness has a big part to play in the make or break of crime. When the leader of the opposition decided to speak about stand your ground, let me clarify the importance of that. This was not the nonsense and the lies of persons trying to shoot at someone if they jump in your yard to steal a mango. We are speaking about the present situation and the environment, that if someone breaks into your home with a cutlass and is coming up your steps, you must go and look for a cutlass because they state what? It must be equal force. Total nonsense. It is your right to defend yourself. It is your right to have a firearm if the state is unable to properly protect you. And that is what stand your ground is. It is to make sure that you don't have to second guess. Because you second guess, you would die. And it has proven that these firearms can be critical towards saving lives. And as I go with the policy and the concern, as I said, the gang legislation, it is not working. So what do? We are, right now, the country is drowning in blood. And the policies that we have seen, there have been none in the last 7 years. The present administration, they do not understand. There's no one that's an expert in national security. They don't have the tactical know-how. So if you look at the gangs, as I said, they are no longer just individuals in three-quarter pants. These are organized persons. They're well-structured and they have massive financial support. In other words, these gangs can be referred to now as a small army. They can be referred to as militants. And I'm sure where I'm going with this. This is now a matter that is beyond policing. As the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, they are not trained to deal with a massive armed conflict, which is why the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force took over in 1990. I was the youngest officer in the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force then, so I knew. I used my military training in 2020 when 150 men tried to storm into Port-of-Spain to destroy the city. Had I not been there, the city would have been destroyed, similar to what happened in 1990, which is why the police, it is not just a policing matter anymore. The reason I'm stating this is that the gangs now, we need to find solutions to deal with the gangs. They are a small army. They are no longer just, as I said, persons just going out and killing here and there. If we look at it from that perspective, we need to understand the meaning of the word terrorism and terrorists. If a person who has an unlawful, as a reason to commit unlawful violence and intimidation, especially to citizens, that person can and should be deemed a terrorist. We have persons here, these criminal elements, they have assault weapons, automatic weapons that can fire 35 rounds in 3 seconds. 35 rounds in 3 seconds. Let me show what that means. If it is that 5 of them stand up here right now, everyone in this room could be killed in 3 seconds. If that is not a terrorist, I don't know what is. That is what these individuals have. Now let us compare that to the Jamaat in 1990, when you had 100 untrained persons using muskets, and a handful of people were killed. They were known as terrorists. I would recommend what we need to do is to look at the same Anti-Terrorism Act, and another country has done it recently. If we place these individuals where they belong as terrorists, it now provides that opportunity for 2 things. It now ensures that we can go after these individuals with full force, where it is that it will be non-bailable. They will now be, it is sentenced as a capital punishment, 25 years in prison. And it also goes after individuals who are involved in aiding and abetting these gangs, from the fellow gang members to the gang leaders, to the persons who finance it, to the persons who import it, and even to certain politicians. Because when I spoke about the problem of gangs being funded by the state, the present Prime Minister said, well, it is their right to get it. You cannot be more ignorant than that. When you feed the enemy, they are going to fund themselves to the point that they are going to have better artillery to go after the same law enforcement agencies that we are asking to protect us. So if it is we go under that anti-terrorism bill, as I said, and we use that, these individuals can now be deemed terrorists. It can now make us go after these individuals. It provides an important point here. We have a Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force, 5,000 strong, and they stay in camp. And the reason for it is because of the situation that they are in. They are boxed in a situation where they do not have the capability to come out and operate as they should. So what we do, we give them a cosmetic aspect of what is known as joint patrols, a soldier and a police officer. This is no longer time for being cosmetic. This is is a time for we are under siege, we are under war. And if it is we utilize the defense force under chapter 1401 of the Defense Act in para 4, it gives the president the authority to put them on active service. And the active service will allow them to make clinical operations to go after these gangs. We are talking about a couple thousand members as gang members compared to 12,000 well-trained members of the defense force and the police that can go after these criminals, peg them back. It worked before. I was able to do it with just 100 persons known as the Special Operation Response Team. It put fear in the criminals, it pegged them back, and it was the highest reduction in violent crime in 17 years. So, as I close, I want to stay within the 15 minutes here. As I said, it can open the window for the defense force to operate. It will now give them the opportunity to be involved in operations. Jamaica, in fact, has the same thing that happens right now. They go along something known as a zone of special operations. That zone of special operations allows the defense force to go in there with clinical operations to go after these gang members, these terrorists, these persons who have caused each and every one of you to be fearful. As I close, we can change this. We can transform Trinidad and Tobago. It requires the political will. Unfortunately, if it is that we provide the policy, the programs, the tools, the individuals who are in position right now may not have the capability or may not even want to do it. So two things we can do. We can at least prepare, as we are doing now, by proper dialogue with you, the citizens of this great country. And if it is that those that are in authority, who will be leaving office shortly, democratically, do not want to accept it, at least we will be prepared, we will have the foundation. So when we are in that position, we can hit the ground running and we do not need a honeymoon period. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we give Captain Gary Griffith a round of applause? Before we welcome Professor Daisley, Gary has given us so many pointers that we can develop upon. But I think a very important point he has made is just the beginning and a continuation of reducing crime in Trinidad and Tobago. We can share with you the statistics. We can see, as Gary told us, where the crimes increased every year from 2015 onwards to the present time. In fact, we had the most murders in the history of Trinidad and Tobago last year. And this year, that trend continued with, again, the second highest number of murders in our country. And whilst that is happening, the detection rate continues to decrease. So where in 2015 we had a detection rate of about 20%, that is down now to 13%. Don't tell me then that you are dealing with crime. Don't tell me that you're refusing to talk to citizens. You live it every day. And I thank you, Gary, for your experience, sharing it with us. And this is not the be-all or end-all. I want you to remember that. This is a continuation, but also the beginning for us to craft a policy. You will say, opposition leader, you are not in government. That's okay. We have a duty to our country and to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And this is where we will work with you to develop proposals that we can implement. And that time will come sooner than you think. I thank you, and I'll ask Nicholas to introduce our next panelist.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we continue with our program this evening, I've been asked to inform you, as the political leader and the leader of the opposition would have stated earlier, we'd have an open floor session for you to give your ideas and your issues. But we also have with us pens and papers and notepads available for those of you who want to just put your suggestions down without going to the mic. So MP Ratiram and MP Amin will be passing around shortly. So those of you who wish to take the notepads and put your ideas down, we will surely collect it after. Ladies and gentlemen, our next panelist is a true patriot. Professor Hubert Daisley is a professor and chairman of anatomical pathology at the University of the West Indies, Trinidad and Tobago. He's an educator. He's a consultant pathologist and dermapathologist. He's also an associate tutor and course director of forensic and legal medicine at the Hugh Wooden Law School. He's also the consultant pathologist at both the San Fernando General Hospital and Scarborough Hospital. His research interests are general pathology and forensic medicine. Professor Daisley is also a fellow of the Royal Society of Medicine and member of the International Society of Gynepathology and International Retrovirology. Professor Daisley has been listed as one of the most noteworthy pathologists in the world and an educator by Marquis Who is Who. Let's welcome this evening Professor Hubert Daisley.
Honorable Leader of the Opposition, Senior Counsel, Ms. Kamala Prasad, Members of Parliament, Senators, members of the Foreign Mission, other invited guests, the press, welcome. I took this opportunity today to speak a bit about crime in Trinidad and Tobago. It is really disturbing and it's frightening. There are all sorts of crimes in Trinidad and Tobago, and they have soared beyond control. What I would speak about, really and truly speaking, would be more gun violence. This has plagued Trinidad and Tobago for quite a while, and something needs to be done. If it is not done, then we all would die, because we all are threatened by this menace of gun violence. Can I have the first line? Now, as I have a little definition here of crime. Crime is an intentional commission of an act usually deemed socially harmful or dangerous and specifically defined, prohibited and punishable under criminal law. Crimes may be variously considered as wrong against individuals, against the community, or the state. One of the basic premises that you would hear from time to time is that all men are created equal, that we are endowed by their Creator with certain rights, that among these are the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These basic rights are now under threat by groups of criminals, young men, gangs in our society. We are here this evening to have discussion on crime so as to restore law and order, so as to reclaim our basic rights of life, liberty, and happiness. Murder stalked our land even in the beginning of time, as was noted in Genesis 4, when Cain killed Abel, his brother, for which he was punished by the Lord. Crime has no place in civil society, for it disrupts the peace and harmony of normal life. Laws were made so each individual are protected in society and can seek the pursuit of happiness. The nation of Trinidad and Tobago is under siege by young black men, criminals, gangs, who threaten our very existence. Each and every citizen is under threat of losing their lives by the gun violence that litter our communities, streets, home on a daily basis. We sat by over the years and allowed the disease that is this crime to go unchecked until we are now literally faced with extermination. For any and every one of us can fall victim at any time. In the earlier years, murder in Trinidad and Tobago was sparse and full of drama. Some of you all might be old enough to remember these crimes were more or less like what you see Agatha Christie, the murder she wrote, or like Sherlock Holmes. They were full of drama and intrigue. The entire nation, I can remember, followed these stories from the detection to trial to conviction and execution. The Trinidad Guardian and the Evening News during those times sold like hotcakes whenever these murders took place. I would just mention a few, and I guess probably you might, my honorable friend, Dr. Gopi Singh. You might remember Dr. Dalip Singh, who murdered his Swedish-born wife, Ing Brong, in 1954. And he put her body in a sack, drove 40 miles with her body, and threw it in the sea off the Godino River. And that was a big thing during the time, as I said. Imagine that Dr. Dalip Singh, during that period of time, he assisted in doing the autopsy of his wife with the pathologist at that time, who was Dr. Barrow. However, he was convicted and he was executed in June 1955 in the Royal Jail. And those of you all might remember Boise Singh, the Raja, that gangster, that pirate, that murderer, and his accomplice, Bolan, who terrorized the water between Trinidad and Tobago and Venezuela. And it is reported that he was responsible for the death of 400 or so people. What he used to do, he operated a ferry, he and his gang, between Port of Spain and Venezuela. And midway, he would rob the passengers and throw them overboard. He himself also was hanged in 1957, not for those crimes, but for the murder of a dancer by the name of Thelma Haynes. And I guess probably you could also remember this streak of crimes that were committed by the Pulul brothers in Caroni in the 1960s. Finally, well, as I said, one of the readings that I came across was the readings of Rafiq Shah, who is a prolific writer. He was my senior at Presentation College in Chaguanas, and I think you should read what Rafiq Shah has to say about those murders. Finally, one could have remembered Malcolm X or Michael de Freitas. And Michael de Freitas in 1975 was executed for the murder of his cousin Joseph Skerritt and an English girl by the name of Gail Ann Benson. This was a chap who was full of black power ideologies. He lived in England. He joined the Islam faith as a black Muslim. He was imprisoned in England. He returned to Trinidad, set up a commune in Christiana Gardens in Arima. And there they murdered these two individuals. However, there was a fire that destroyed the commune, and the bodies were discovered, and he was hung, executed for those murders. That murder was sung by the late Lord Kitchener, one to hang. And there's a lot of intrigue, as I said, that went on during those particular period. Murder was sparse. In 1975, when Malik committed these murders, or the population of Trinidad and Tobago was 1.05 million people. In 1975, there were 60 murders and 17 manslaughters and 9,793 crimes reported to the police. So in the year 1975, there were just 77 murders. But over the years, murders have galloped out of control. And you could see on the board there, in 1994, the number of murders was 143. And as the former Commissioner of Police has said, that it went into a galloping rage. In 2008, it was 550. I mean, this is moving from 75 or 77 to 550. And then something must have gone very wrong. In 2021, it went to 448. In 2022, it went to 605. And in 2023, it went to 575. Something is obviously wrong. These figures send a chill through me when I see them. I remember as a young man going to Jamaica, and when I started my residency in pathology, those were not the figures in Trinidad. The figures in Jamaica at that time, we were experiencing 900 and something murders per year. And we are going to get there if something is not done drastically to curb these figures. Probably we were all asleep and not really following the trend and doing something about it. Look at the crime statistic in Trinidad and Tobago as compared to the rest of the Caribbean. Now, as I said, when I went to Jamaica, Jamaica was first. Look at what is happening here according to the crime index. The country that ranked first with crime index, that is according to population size and what have you, in the Caribbean is Trinidad and Tobago. And this is awful. Jamaica comes second, the Bahamas comes third, and Puerto Rico follows fourth. Now, if you look at the crime statistics of Trinidad and Tobago in terms of world crime statistics, you would see that Venezuela is first and Trinidad and Tobago is seventh. And this is awful. This is really awful. We were nowhere within the first 20 or 30 in years gone by. And we are seventh here, and yet still there don't seem to be a meaningful effort to pull those figures back and provide safe communities for the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. It is interesting to see that Venezuela is in the number one position. And I would ask the question, is there an input in serious crimes in Trinidad and Tobago for migrants and refugees? I don't know. This is a question I ask. And that is for the authorities to look into. Now, the situation in crime in Trinidad and Tobago is atrocious. And not only are we becoming prisoners in our home, but we are all, each and every one of us, are targets for serious crimes. We must eradicate, destroy this monster from our community. This is the most serious state of affairs, and all hands are needed on deck to get rid of crime from our society, for you would lose your life and there surely would be no liberty and happiness for you. In my readings, I came across I think he's a young man by the name of Shane Superville. And Shane Superville, he wrote an article, I don't know if he's here, I've never seen the fellow. But he wrote an article in The Guardian and he spoke about murder rate slow for 2023, but fears, concern linger. No real sign things getting better. Now, this is a paper I think that everybody should read and understand where we are in terms of gun violence in Trinidad and Tobago. For instance, he says in 2023, gun continued to be the weapon of choice for criminals, with approximately 478 out of the 555 murders were committed using guns. That is 86% of the murders in 2023 were done by the use of a gun. For the same period in 2022, 509 murders out of 588 murders were committed using guns. And that worked out to be 87% of the murders that were committed in 2022 were by guns. And as the Honorable Leader of the Opposition said, there was only an 11% detection, which meant out of the 509 murders, only 64 were solved. And that is unacceptable, to say the least. However, in his article, he continued, and this is where we have to understand what is going on in terms of crime in Trinidad and Tobago. He said that in October of that year, the Interagency Task Force discovered 35 assault rifles and 1,000 rounds of ammunition in Santa Cruz. In November of that same year, 13 assault rifles were discovered in Princestown. He then cited the areas of the hotspot where crime were committed in Trinidad and Tobago, and I think you all know where they are. But he continued and he made a statement, and the statement here, which is very relevant to what my colleague spoke about. And he said, you may think that situation is very basic, but if we don't catch that little boy, he's going to grow up to be a 16-year-old or a 17-year-old that will be a real problem for the country. If we really need to solve crime, from the statistics that we need to get to the root cause of serious crime, murders in Trinidad and Tobago. We need to get at the illegal guns. And we must ask where these illegal guns are coming from. They are really coming through the natural route. They are also coming from ports, unmanned ports along our coastline. And we need to monitor those areas because we need to stem the flow of these illegal firearms in the country. One has to understand what Mr. Gary Gifford said. I don't believe that the youths in Laventil or the youths in Arima can buy these guns. There has to be somebody or some organization that is supplying them with this. And what we need to do is to get that organization. Until we could get at that organization or whoever it is, then we would have the youths being constantly lured into this organization, and the cycle of crime is not going to change. I really cannot finish what I'm saying because of the lack of time. But one of the things that we should do is that we need to get into the communities where the crime is runaway. And we need to get to the youths and understand exactly what their mindsets are, why it is that they would be driven into crime, and act on those problems, act on the reason for it. But as we know, crime is a multifaceted thing, and we need to approach it in that particular way. We need all hands on deck. We need to get into the school to stop the bullying and what have you. We need to get into the churches and get the priests and so forth aboard. We need very good policing, as the commissioner says. We need to have within the force people who have done criminology and psychologists and what have you, who would help in understanding the dilemma that we are in. We need to supervise the education that the kids are open to. We need to put things in place to mend the broken families. We need to create employment. Over the years, we have closed two major industries in Trinidad and Tobago, the Caroni Limited and the Petrotrin. And their closure obviously is having a negative effect on our economy, a negative effect on employment. And I think that probably there should be some way forward in trying to regenerate and revitalize these things. Then the criminal justice system that we have, they also must play a better role. Justice must be swift, and punishment must be prohibited. Why it is that a prisoner should remain 10 years in prison before he is called to trial? Something is obviously wrong there. I don't believe in capital punishment, but if it is in the statute, what is the problem? There must be rehabilitation, as my friend says here, for prisoners. And prisoners should be made to contribute to the national economy, just as what happens in China. Crime is a multifactorial problem, and it is not only solved by policing, but all the social factors must come into play in its solution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Daisley, for your very erudite and taking us way back. I always remember as a child about Dr. Dalip Singh. It was a great mystery, and it was not something we ever had. You know, I also remember Professor, the name Mano Benjamin. Anybody here could remember that? Are you as young as I am? Yes? It was a horrendous crime, maybe the first of its kind, Prof? Maybe the first of its kind in Trinidad and Tobago. So we've come a long way. We've not come a better way from those days that you've reminded us. And I'm very happy you made a very, very important point that we seem to miss. And I was talking to Dr. Indira here. She says she will also develop it further, that these young persons are wielding all these kinds of guns. They don't have the money to buy those guns. And when you raised the main issue you said for us is gun violence, you told us the percentage of crimes being committed with guns, and therefore there must be a way in our looking for solutions to how do we stem that inflow of the guns. And then we can't just blame the young men and young women out there with the guns, because at that point I think it's something we need to look further into. Where are they getting the money for those guns? Or who is arming them? Who is giving them these guns? I think that's a very important point. I was also thank you all very much. Let's recognize Professor for that point. I'm not sure if it has been made before, but it really struck me when I read it up on your screen and heard you. The second thing the professor shared with us is, so where are these guns coming from? Yeah. What then do we need to do? What the professor said to us, and he really had to skim through that part, and we certainly take your whole treatise today. I noticed on the screen, Prof, that you talked about what we do at our ports. Where are the guns coming from? They're not coming from the sky. They're coming through ports, whether the legal ports or the not legal ports, and therefore borders. The issue of our very porous borders. And I remember former Minister of National Security under our watch, Captain Griffith, and the team we had there, that we were very concerned about the very porous borders and how do we block these guns from coming in. We had several proposals for those, and we'll develop those another day. But today is not so much for us to speak, but for panelists. So I was very interested. You talked about the fishing ports, that we should have, protective services at these ports and all these other ports. Captain Griffith, remember that we wanted to get the, remind me, the maritime wall, to encircle us with a maritime wall, but also to go into the groves and the mangroves, those interceptors, not the big boats and ships, but the hovercraft. That's what I'm trying to remember. So, Prof, you're correct. Guns, number one issue in the country when it comes to serious crime. So we look further, the matters you've raised, and again, we want to thank you very, very much, Professor. Can we give him a round of applause? I want to remind you, before Nicholas introduces our final speaker for tonight, that we will close the discussion after that panelist from us here. But we want to get your questions, your suggestions to the panelists or to any of us here. We really would appreciate your input. And we've given half of the time allotted today for that part of the exercise. So we are not just on the talk down. We want you to talk back to us, please. So we welcome that. And Nicholas, please introduce our final presenter for tonight.
Ladies and gentlemen, again, you're joining us here for the Opposition Leaders Anti-Crime Town Hall meeting as she fosters a united discussion to save and return security to every community and every family. This evening, our last panelist is a pioneer in political science and education within our Caribbean region. Dr. Indira Rampersad is the head of Department of Political Science at the University of the West Indies. She's also the president of the West Indies Group of University Teachers, WIGOT, and lecturer in international relations. She was also a member of the Trinidad and Tobago government-appointed Cabinet Committee on Young Males and Crime in Trinidad and Tobago, chaired by the late Professor Selwyn Ryan. Other members of that committee were Professor of Gender and Cultural Studies Patricia Mohammed, former Dean of the Arts and General Studies at UE, Dr. Marjorie Thorpe, and Independent Senator Dr. Lennox Bernard. Their report was laid in Parliament in 2013, titled No Time to Quit, Engaging Youth at Risk. Dr. Rampersad's research interests now extend to Latin American and Caribbean politics and international relations, American foreign policy, crime and violence in the Caribbean, as well as the Caribbean Court of Justice, international law, and Caribbean constitutional law. Dr. Rampersad has also served as a commissioner of the Equal Opportunity Commission of Trinidad and Tobago. She's also a qualified attorney at law and regular media commentator on national, regional, and international issues. Let us welcome Dr. Indira Rampersad.
Honorable Leader of the Opposition, members of Parliament, senators, members of the Diplomatic Corps, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, good evening, I should say, and I do want to thank the Office of the Opposition for inviting me to present here today in an area in which I have researched extensively and I have published as well. Only today I got news that 2 articles I'd written and been waiting on information on what's happening on drugs, crime, and gangs would be, the book is actually published and the books are on their way to me. There are 2 chapters in books. So I have a number of publications and maybe you can see them on the screen. The crime report, which was just mentioned, I was the vice chair with Professor Selwyn Ryan. We call it the Ryan Report. And we also had Dr. Marjorie Taw, Professor Mohammed, and Dr. Lennox Bernard there. But since then, I continued to publish because that stirred my interest in the subject. But also, I have been personally affected, as I think many of you have been. If not by home invasion, by being held up. And so I continue to do my research. The university has a very robust research effort there. There's a group of people. We have a Center for Crime and Criminology at the university. There's really no reason why we should be having all this crime. We can't understand that crime report, which was commissioned by the People's Partnership Government, headed by Ms. Kamala Prasad Bisesa, is still quite relevant. I still send copies of it to people who looking to do research, who want information. A lot of it is still quite relevant. The problem remains. The problem remains the same. Some of the causes are the same. Some of the consequences are the same. There may be some changes in the dynamics. Little changes, not big changes in the dynamics. But what we notice is that it has proliferated more. So it's greater. 2013 to 2023. It's 10 years now since we had that crime report. And it's now a lot more than it was before. So personally, we are affected. I mean, any one of you here can say you're not affected by crime. I don't think you'll be telling the truth. You live in mortal fear. We live in fear. You see a strange car in your street, you want to know if it's bandits. It happened to me yesterday, my neighbor calling me, a strange car in the street, middle of the work, doing work, getting this presentation ready, we work, whatever work. Middle of the night, the guns are ringing out in St. Augustine from all sides. Neighborhood Watch Alive in the WhatsApp chat. What's going on? You all heard that? And you're working, we're working, your car work. How can you work in this kind of environment? I like to run, I like to jog around the university. University is enclosed, I ain't taking the chance. Can't go to the beach, we're afraid to go to the beach. I started to go to Tobago to go to the beach. And then the gangs reach there too. So where do we go? What kind of life we have? What kind of family life we have? What kind of personal life we have? Even the workspace is affected. You're afraid to come out because you see a strange person in the street and you're afraid to come out of your gate because you don't know if this is a bandit. And this is the life we're living. They're walking with grinders and bolt cutters and they're cutting. They are burglar proof in your homes. So you buy up, you spend a set of money buying up every door, window, nook and cranny in the house. To the point when you forget something, you have to spend a good 10 minutes getting in and coming back out. So you're always late. But the point is that you're living in fear. Now, I didn't plan to say this, but all of this is coming to my mind when I heard the former presentations. It's just abject fear. And yes, there is a correlation between crime and migration. Because when you can't take it no more, if you could afford, you leave. You just pack up your bundle and you go. Because you can't take it no more. What do? The safety of your home, your family, it's paramount. You need to protect them. You can't protect them here and you're not getting the protection that you need from the state. So I have here, you know, a lot of academic stuff, which I don't know if I'm going to go through. How did we get here? You know, that is one of the things when the crime committee met. We spent days on end discussing how did we get here. And this was in 2013. It wasn't as bad as it is in 2023, 2024. How did we get here? And we started to look at some of the history. You know, I have a title here, Colonialism and Beyond. And we saw some of the root causes of crime and colonialism. But it goes beyond that, and we don't want to hide behind colonialism and slavery. I always tell my students, you know, you look at that, but you look at a lot of other things that happened. We've had independence since 1962. We need to get out of that and stop blaming colonialism and slavery for everything, and indentureship. We need to get away from that. Okay, so there were a lot of things that were happening, and we have, I mean, many of our researchers have researched some of the culture of violence that existed during the colonial period. You know, we had the extermination of the Amerindians in the first place, which itself was a violent exercise. We had enslavement of the Africans. That was a violent form of forced labor. The slave masters used to flog and whip the slaves, maintaining discipline and control. Corporal punishment was the order of the day. Okay, so you had violence among slaves, between slaves. Then you have child abuse during that time, during that period. You had a lot of child abuse, because if you are beaten, you know, the psychologists and the psychiatrists will tell you that you tend to beat your children as well. So child abuse and brutality was also very pervasive during that slavery era. That the carnivals, they say also, they had something called the Jamet Carnival and the Cambole. You will remember the Cambole riots, 1881. The steel pan movement, there was a lot of violence between, in the 1940s and 50s, between these steel pan groups and between the steel pan and the police. So we have Professor Brereton writing a lot about this culture of violence in the Caribbean, and Trinidad and Tobago in particular. You know, under Professor Earl Lovelace stated that those were the days when every district around Port of Spain was its own island, and the steel band within its boundaries was its army providing warriors to uphold its sovereignty. Those were the war days when every street corner was a garrison. So what we're witnessing now is a garrison-style behavior. Garrison-style behavior, which is very evident in Jamaica in recent times. But Jamaica now, as Professor Daisley has shown, Professor Daisley, you taught me law at Tewing, I don't know if you would remember, but you were my professor. Yes, he's shown the Jamaica statistics have reduced. Jamaica has less crime now than Trinidad because Jamaica is doing what it takes to alleviate the crime. You know, you can't just hold a weapon in your hand and walk around the place in Jamaica now. The legislation have passed with regards to weapon possession, possession of arms and ammunition. They've been very, very strict with those things. So there are measures that can be taken. We're not just taking them. The political will is not there. I think that is the primary problem. Political will is not there to deal with this crime problem. So, you know, the history also spawned a lot of bad Johns, and I come from New Grand Princetown, that same village from where Mr. Pandey hails, and that is where stick fighting originated. I remember my father came home one day with his head bleeding. My mother would always tell us about this. My father used to be involved in stick fighting. He couldn't fight, but he gone to join the fun. So, you know, that is part of the history as well. But again, the reason why I entitled this thing Colonialism and Beyond is because we just can't dwell on history, blame the problems of the past, and say, okay, that is why we have crime. The East Indian indentureship also, we had a culture of violence there. Now we say, a lot of people are talking about, you know, little black boys, and that was heavily discussed in the Ryan report. But we also looked at this notion of crime amongst the East Indian community, particularly domestic violence and the proclivity for alcohol abuse. And I wrote about that alcohol abuse phenomenon, and we hear what they're singing in the chutney show. You know, what is rum kill my mother, rum till I die, was Guinness and puncheon, right? Yeah, so those kinds of things, you know, it's sort of evoking this whole notion of cravings for alcohol, which is precipitating, and it's not just amongst the Indian community, eh? Trinidadians like the grog. Trinidadians like the rum. It's not just the Indian community on the whole, and that is also, you know, precipitating the crime. So we have alcohol abuse as one of the problems. Now there are also sociological issues, a sociological dimension to this. And that, when I talk about sociological dimension, we're talking about, for example, the education system. Now, I don't want to say that the education system has failed. I am a beneficiary of the education system. Many of us have been educated in Trinidad and Tobago, but there are clear fallacies in the education system. And one of the problems was that junior secondary school. A junior secondary school spawned generations of young people who had half-day idle. Half-day idle. I used to teach in one. I used to see how they behave. They had a lot of free time on their hands, some of them under no supervision. So we have these sociological impulses. I wouldn't say it has failed. We have students that are excelling all over the world. You know, we see scholarship winners coming out and doing very, very well. So we can't say it's totally failed. But a lot of that would be also because they beat the system. They managed to beat the system. We also have dynamics of ethnicity, class, and gender, and this whole notion of racial profiling. You know, I was commissioned, one of the chapters of the book that I did was on violence against Afro-Trinidadian women. Now, I wanted to do the chapter on violence against women, but the editor said, no, we're doing a book on Afro women and Mexico and different countries in the world, so you have to stick to that. So while I did all the research on women, they said, no, take out that. Leave only the Afro woman part. It was fine, and I did it, got it published. And what I found, these were my findings. Why are Afro women subject to such violence? A lot of these women are being killed by ex-husbands and boyfriends, jealous, revenge, and rage. They may be the baby mother, or as they say, the mother of the child. And when they leave the guy, whether it's divorce or separation, the guy coming back for them because he can't take it. He can't take it. The class dynamic is also linked to this ethnic factor. And one of the things we have to understand is that it's not only underprivileged youths that are involved in gangs. Some of the research found that, some of these gang members are educated. They come from middle-class families. Money is not a problem. Okay? We do have at-risk youths, high unemployment and underemployment. Now, this is a real problem right now in the country. We are graduating students every year, and now a lot of them are doing master's degrees, and they're coming out and they cannot get employment commensurate with their education. So students with master's degrees are coming out and working as clerical officers if they find a job. I have 2 OJTs in my office right now, OJTs with degrees, and they're doing master's degrees. Then we have to look at the role of the elites. This is another class dimension in fostering the drugs and the arms trade and promoting gang activities. So she was asking the question. And I have that question too because I have a picture there. You all remember the Santa Cruz bus in October? That Santa Cruz bus, I remember I was looking at the TV carefully because I had protest march that day, and I said, okay, I'm going to get the headlines, and then come the Santa Cruz bus and take away my headlines. And I say, oh my God. But the point is, whatever it was they were doing, whether I was really a boss or not, I ain't getting there. Where all them guns come from? Who bringing in them guns? How are they getting into the country? Now, Commissioner of Police might be able to answer that better than me, and I wish he would. But the point is, we have sharks and barracudas, and herons and small fries. Okay? And David rather say, somebody bringing the cocaine in, somebody bringing the ammunition in. Somebody bringing the ammunition in, and people afraid to talk. Because you see some people lying on the side of the road, they don't do nobody nothing, and next thing you hear, they get shot down. They get shot because somebody afraid that they will squeal. Okay, now I don't know, I don't have the names. What I am saying is that this whole notion of class is something we have to look at, something that we have to look at. Okay, so I spoke about gender as well. Now in the university is 2-to-1 we graduating male to female. 2-to-1. So the women are coming out now, and where they're going to find husbands qualified like them. Because they're married men who are less qualified. And when the honeymoon is over, the fella now starts to feel real insecure because she working and she bringing in more money than me. Then he has started to drink, then start to beat her. Then also he may get involved in crime and gang activism. All right, some say the popular music, the soca music is fast beat. They say they used to say is dancehall and hip hop in Jamaica. Now they're saying it's the soca in Trinidad. That is I think yet to be proven. But the one thing we have to understand is there's a connection between crime and the drug trade and the arms trade. The ammunition sometimes are coming in with the drugs because they have to protect the drugs. They have to protect the drugs. Now, the drugs is a transnational trade. Okay, the drugs are coming in from Bolivia and Colombia, the white stuff, because that can't grow in the Caribbean. Okay, the coca leaves, that cannot grow in the Caribbean. Caribbean is producing the marijuana. St. Vincent and Jamaica, we're getting that from, a lot of it. We're not growing so much, We're consuming some marijuana, but we're not really consuming a lot of cocaine. It's not, big consumption is not the issue. The issue is that the Caribbean and Trinidad and Tobago is a geostrategic location. We're a transshipment point where the drugs coming in from there, South America, landing here, okay, somebody bringing it with the arms, and then it is being transshipped to North America, to Europe, Canada included, and some other countries. So that is how the Caribbean is caught up in this thing. And the drug trade is global, it's international, and is big, big money. So why are these young boys going for the drug trade, going into drugs and crime and gangs, a lot of them? It's easy. You don't have to study. You don't have to burn the midnight oil. Okay, it's very, very easy. So we don't know what else to do. We have a lot of proposals. I have some here, but my time is up. Some of them, the crime report is full of recommendations. That's one of the things we made sure we do. We say we're not going to just find the problem and discuss how and why, but we are going to discuss how to deal with the problem, at least alleviate it if we cannot resolve it completely. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I think that I believe that the academic community at any rate is doing what it has to do in terms of the research. I believe that the partnership government tried, okay, and we know what the state of emergency caused. I think we need a state of emergency every day now. Every time I hear those guns ringing out around me, I think we need a state of emergency. So with that, I want to leave you. There is one other thing I will take 1 minute. To the parents out there. I have been an educator for decades, a very long time. And I can tell you that the students of today are not the students of yesterday. There is this Gen Z culture Okay, we have Gen Z and millenniums. Gen Z are those between the ages of 12 and 27, and the millenniums are those between the ages of 28 and 43. This culture, they're perpetuating, I don't know where it's coming from, entitlement, uncaring, selfish, quick money. Some are very privileged, they're spoiled, and they're lazy. Now that is because the generation before them worked very, very hard to give them everything they want, and they're giving them everything they want. Not a good idea. They don't wish to work, they don't read, they don't watch the news, they don't even watch TV, they don't even watch a movie. They are unaware of current affairs, they do not care. All day in that phone, all day, I don't know what they be doing. I don't know if it is porn, I don't know what is the obsession. I understand they're dating on the phone as well. So I am asking the parents out there, and this is in the national community, to pay attention to what your children are doing and take control. Take control. You are the parents. You know, some of them come and they complain to me about the children. I say, but I am my child. That's your child. Take control. You are in charge. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Rampersad. A very stirring contribution for us this evening. And I really want to hear from you, so I'll open the floor. But before I do that, I want to categorically agree with you to state that what is needed now, amongst all the other suggestions, is a state of emergency in Trinidad and Tobago. Everything else has been tried and tested. And I think Captain Griffith will also agree with us, given what we achieved. Whilst many condemned us for putting that state of emergency, I remember one weekend, there were 11 murders in one weekend. And we call all the national security people together. What do? You have all the laws on the books. You have all the schools. You have all the social grants, Ministry of Social Development. You have all these other things we are speaking about. And you know what made the difference? The state of emergency that we instituted. Yes, we got a lot of pong for it, but you know what happened? The crime went down. It worked in Trinidad and Tobago. So I ask you to consider that as we go forward for these crime talks, and we'll have further discussions on it. It is not something that the opposition can do, but it is something that is really definitely needed at this time. If we are to feel safer, as you say, Dr. Rampersad, you know, everybody is living in fear, crime is affecting everyone. So we move along now. The floor is open. Please put up your hands if you would like to contribute. And the mic, well, I think the mic was supposed to come to you rather than making that line. Kevin, is Kevin here, please? Yes, I'm asking for the mic to rove, please.
We have a line right here, Honorable Leader. People are ready.
Can I get our people who are supposed to help us to get that mic moving? So then you can come forward here. You identify the person. Nicholas, give them a mic, please. And then, Kevin, you can ask Nick to help you, O'Brien, and you will come here so the cameras can get you when you're speaking. All they're getting of you now is your back. So please come forward here. Well, kindly. Okay, so you see, this is why I didn't want to line up. Okay, so if you could raise your hands, we can get the mic to you. Can we do it so we get it done in an orderly manner? Because it seems we have almost the entire audience lined up. Can you please, when you get that mic, please state your name, tell us where you're from, and share your thoughts with us. I thank you very much. Can we ask the line to move into another corridor so the cameras will not be blocked in getting the persons up? You can go to the other side. If you still wish to line up, please go to the other side. Can I ask you to please go on the other aisle there so the cameras can get the people representing? No, he can stay here, but the ones who want to speak thereafter can join in the corridor if they wish to make a line. So we're very orderly then. You can line up on the corridor to my left, the aisle. Can we state your name and where you're from, please?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Junior Emmanuel. This is my wife, Marilyn Emmanuel. This This is our daughter, our 20-year-old daughter, Shadi Emmanuel, who has been missing for the past 6 years this year. 6 years our daughter has been missing. On the 27th of June 2018, she went missing. To make it short, she was supposed to go to Chaguanas to meet her boyfriend. And during the course of the day, he called me and told me he was trying to get on to her, but for some reason he wasn't getting on to her. Called me, they called my wife, we didn't get on to her. We went home. I'm trying to make this as short as possible because of the time. We went home, still trying to call to get on to her about 9 o'clock in the night. My wife and I in the gallery, waiting for her to come home. Her boyfriend came up the stairs, never seen him so pumped before, told us he's still trying to get on to her, still can't get on to her. Said, okay. We called the Brasso police. We told them that our daughter is missing. Something was wrong with her. We haven't gotten on to her for the day. They told us, asked them how long it has to be before we can make a report. They said, Mr. Emmanuel, as soon as you believe something is wrong, come one time. We went to the police station immediately. The police took our report. They were very helpful. But I must say that in that police station, there was one female police officer. When we went in there, she is the only officer that would tell us, okay, go back home, and Saturday when she comes home, you can bring her and we will talk to her. That was 6 years ago. My daughter hasn't been back since. About a year after my daughter went missing, we saw a report in the newspapers that they had found a burnt corpse in the Santa Flora oil field area. I got in contact with the officer who was in charge at the time and told him I want to see that. I want to go and view those pictures. I did go, and when they showed me, they said, Mr. Emmanuel, ready to see this? I said, yes. Going through the pictures on the, on a monitor around this area, they said they were like carpets, pieces of carpets and stuff, burnt carpet, and when they removed it, there was a scorched area showing the garment that she had on, which was a tie-dye. I said, officers, wait, let me show you something. Took out my phone, excuse me, showed them something. Showed them a picture of this exact skirt that she had on that day. The officers just looked at one another. They didn't tell me anything, they just looked at one another. Said, Mr. Emmanuel, okay, we will work on this. I left there, nothing came out of that, actually. Nothing came out of that. A while after, the media got in touch with us a long time after that. And as her story was on the media, someone called us from Police Spain, an officer from Police Spain, and said, Mr. Emmanuel, we saw your story in the newspaper. That was about after the burnt corpse. After that came out in the newspapers. They told us to go to the Siparia police station to do a DNA test, which I went immediately to do a DNA test. I did the DNA test. The officers were very helpful, very professional, I must say. They were very professional. They said, okay, we will contact you when we get the DNA results. About almost 3 weeks after the DNA results came back inconclusive. They said, okay, we need your wife to come in to get her testing, because they said something about the mother blood will be closer to the child's. Took my wife the same day that we got my results, took her down to the Siparia police station. They took her DNA. To this day, we have not gotten any results from that DNA results. So they told us, before that, they told us that her case cannot move from a missing person unless they get positive DNA results. But I can't understand why it is taking so long to get results.
I think we are all feeling your pain. I don't think there's anything worse in the world than lose a child. and we share your grief, and whatever we can do, we'll try to help. So, Brian, can you guys take their contacts, please?
Thank
so
you
we
so
can
much.
give someone else a chance
Thank you so
to
much.
make a contribution. So thank you. God's blessings and our prayers are with you and your family. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Robert Amar, all protocols observed. I am happy to be here today to share with you some of the issues. There are a lot of issues that have come up here today, but I think I want to start with the most important one. Who funds crime? A lot of people in here wouldn't like me. But hear what? The funding from crime comes from government. Gary Griffith told you, not me. So when we give them the money, and we give them the contracts, but we don't do the background checks, and verify their authenticity to being a real contractor, don't complain now. Government caused part of the problem. Dalip Singh, Boise Singh, Pulul, Malcolm X, you are right. Is the opposition leader prepared to enforce the death penalty? You know what you said? You said if you have to do it, because it is in the books. You know why Dalip Singh and the rest that you called, we are a safer country? Government was taking the action. It's the same thing this young lady said. You know why the Jamaicans have solved the problem? Gun is the problem. They pass a law. If they catch you with the gun, 10 years. No questions asked. Is the opposition prepared to do that when she gets back in office?
Well, Ms. Amar, I appreciate it, but I don't think this is a forum to be accusing us of things.
I'm not accusing.
I'm asking you to make your suggestions.
Right,
Are
so-
you suggesting that the government enforces the death penalty?
I am
Are you suggesting that the government pass a law about the guns?
Yes.
So,
I'm
tell us,
suggesting
please
that
tell us.
because
So we'll take
it
we'll
works.
take the notes.
And the professor has explained that. It's not me.
Yeah, he did
This
say
is
that.
history.
I
But then
think-
let's ask about 1,869 kilograms of cocaine found on Munas Island. Where did it disappear? Have you ever seen the evidence that it was destroyed? Do you know where it gone? 200 kilograms of cocaine found down in Chagaramas in a wagon. Have we found out? Is the government going to take that cocaine and send it to the United States of America to test to find out where you say it come from? Colombia, and we don't make it here? No, you leave out Mexico. Okay? There's a lot more I want to tell you, but I want you to understand. This is a complex problem, but I'd have to start by questioning three things. What are we trying to solve? Murders? How much guns? 400 and something? Commissioner? Ballistics? 400 and something? No bullets to come here? At this stage, after almost 3 years? We serious? What are we trying to do? Solve home invasion? Yes. I agree, stand your ground. Because I think robberies, human trafficking, 2 sets of human trafficking. One in Westmoreland, the next one in Curep. We have found out nothing about it yet. Where those 20 children gone? But we find one man, and he get away. And he got tried in absentia. So I want to say to the people who are here today, enforce the death penalty. Find the laws that will make sure when you find the drugs and the case is finished, they are destroyed in the presence of people that you know it's no longer there. And make sure that we get the new number plate, so the fellow who commit the crime in Long Circular Mall, we'll be able to lock him down already. Because we have a new system that is 35 years waiting to be installed. 35 years. And they are putting the new number plate here. Here's the worst part. A tender was awarded 4 years ago. A man was selected. And that new number plate, 400,000 more cars on the road. And we still can't find the culprits because the government doesn't have the will. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Amar. Some very good suggestions that we could certainly give consideration to.
Pleasant good night to everyone. My name is Donnie Rogers, and I stand before you today in my capacity as a
I'm
director.
sorry, I didn't get your name.
Sorry, ma'am. My
Your
name is
name,
Donnie
please.
Rogers.
Donnie.
I stand before you today in my capacity as a director with the Agricultural Society of Trinidad and Tobago. Many people don't realize, or maybe we forget sometimes, that crime affects agriculture and crime affects your food. So let me just bring a couple quick facts for you all. The farming sector in Trinidad and Tobago not really afraid of predial larceny anymore, you know. You know what they're afraid of? They're afraid of being hogtied, lit alight in front of their family, tortured, and robbed. And that is what happened to our farmer. I wouldn't call the area. That is what happened to our farmer not so long ago. On the issue of predial larceny, let me just bring forward something that recently occurred. We have maybe 3 predial larceny officers. The main office, which is located in Carson Field, has been closed for renovations. So you know what the minister does? He moved everybody to Princestown. So from Caroni to San Fernando and beyond, the farmers have no protection. In the largest concentrated area where farmers are, they have no protection. And it boils down to leadership. And this is what we need. Leadership. Because that is what I see at the head table there. I'll pass you on.
Thank you very much. And again, I want to bring in Gary Griffith on this issue of the predial larceny and the squad. And Gary could share what we did to have that squad up and running. And since then, what has happened, they have totally emasculated the squad. Would you like to contribute to Mr. Donnie, please?
Yes, Bill. So the predial larceny squad is a squad that was designed specifically to deal with such type of crime, because we understood it required specific training, understanding, knowledge, and because of that, that played a very big part towards assisting in that reduction. We were also aware of the need for even firearms for persons in that type of business, where it is firearms were required. I was doing what was required, and then certain persons thought it wasn't the appropriate thing to do. But obviously, when you're the small farmer, the small businessman, and you have to see about your cattle, your crops, you need that type of protection. If the state is unable to protect you, you're in a desolate area, far from anything, and someone decides to go there to invade your home, your property, your crops, your livestock, you needed that protection. And which is why it is that when Kamala Prasad Bisesa continues to speak about the importance of giving licensed firearms to those persons who need it, those persons in your industry, so we understand that you need it, because it must be given to you if the state is unable to protect you.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Sorry, one moment. Brian, can you all take the names and phone numbers of each speaker so we can do follow-up discussions with them on their suggestions, please? Go ahead, sir.
Good night, everyone. Good night to the table. My name is Marlon Montoya, President of the Jurnium Junction Farmers Association. My area has been plagued for the past 2 years with crime. Last year alone, we had 6 stolen cars found in our area. 3 of my farmers were held up, beaten, cars stolen, taken away from them. Right? One suggestion I will like to make with the predial larceny squad, can't we get them working alongside the police station so they could work hand in hand with the police? Because I think every time you call them, as they have no vehicle, they're doing something. The 6th of January, I set up a meeting for predial larceny. I'm still waiting on predial larceny squad to come to this meeting. You telling me predial larceny squad was shut down nearly 2 years. This month, they start back up. But you demolish our office. So they have no office in Central. So why did it shut down, and they know they was trying to recruit people, why didn't fix the office all the time? So you wait until they back up and running, break down the building, send them somewhere else. We are in some difficult times. Media take this yes, because we are feeding the nation. And we are neglected. Farmers are neglected. I telling all you. If you all want to see problem, take my number. Come to Jurnium Junction Farmers, and you all will see the forbidden kingdom.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hello. Good evening, panelists and honorable opposition leader. Thank you for giving this opportunity to ask you a few questions. I have a bit of a loaded question, so please forgive me. How prevalent are neighborhood watches, and how effective are they to deterring and solving crime? Do police take their observations seriously? Do you believe citizens being part of the watch deters them from committing crimes, as now they have a responsibility to the community, like taking ownership, if you will?
Anyone would like to respond? We didn't get your question properly. One question at a time might help us.
Okay. How prevalent are neighborhood watches in this country?
How effective are neighborhood watches? Well, tell me, where do you live? Is there a neighborhood watch?
I'm from the United States, so I'm not too familiar with, what really goes on here in the country.
Okay, hold on.
So what I can tell you is that what have developed with technology is a lot of WhatsApp groups. So we have a lot of WhatsApp chat groups, and people are very, very vigilant on those groups. Some people are getting together and paying privately to have security posts set up in the neighborhood, right? So Valsine South, Rail Spring, Khadija could talk about that. They did it there because you have no choice. Now, it is, these things are costly enterprises, it's costing the citizens money, things that the state should be doing. The state should be protecting the citizens. The citizens now have to find money to pay security to protect their neighborhoods, and then you also have to be up all night to check the WhatsApp to make sure nobody in front of your house. So the neighborhood watch thing is now, virtually through the WhatsApp chat.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, good evening all. My name is Kenny McIntyre. I am a retired senior superintendent of police. I work in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service for 40 years. And I feel privileged for this conference because I have been part and parcel of our society from the time that the gentleman spoke about, Mr. Daisley. He had an encounter with Mr. Daisley doing autopsies. He may not remember me, but I have been in those days to this time. And I feel that I have the authority to talk about why our society is as it is. There was a time when Trinidad and Tobago was beautiful. Despite all that was said before, it was safe. Parents used to parent their children. There were moral values. There were spiritual values. There was unity among the people of this country. And over time, it has increased. I don't know if it's because of external influences in the United States, whatever it is, everybody tend to adopt a different approach. But I am here to talk particularly about 2010 to 2015. Myself, this gentleman here, Mr. Abraham, stand up a minute, please. Johnny Abraham. We took responsibility for Central Division, changing the communities one by one. And it moved from a rioting society to a peaceful one where two arch rivals, with their children playing in the center, and we had peace. We had peace. It gradually decreased. During that time, we had an increase in technology. We had drones operating. We had the National Command Center. We had patrols of all kinds all over the place. We had a nice network with all the other agencies working. Crime started to decrease. People started to take responsibility for their actions. And after a while, things just started getting explosive. Why? I'll tell you why. Because starting with the state has a legal and a constitutional responsibility to take care of us as citizens. Every one of us. They are not doing what they're supposed to do and paid to do. They are blatantly disregarded, educated, and well-learned people in this society. We have had it enough. And I'll tell you something. We are the ones with the power to change that. We are the ones with the power to change that. I can go on and on in terms of solutions to crime and all of that. Mr. Griffith made an excellent presentation in terms of what we had and what could be implemented and the rationale behind it. But it boils down to you, the individual. With those little criminals, they're not really criminals. They entered into a society where they see, look, there are no consequences for their actions, and they learn to play the system. So it relies on you, and you. Start in your own home, parenting. Let them know there are consequences to their actions. Because even as police officers, we find a lot of things taking place with the police service at this time. We are products of the society as well. You understand? So it is important that we have to change this. We can't rely on external forces. Right here it starts. Right? We are denied of opportunities. We are deprived of lack of education in terms of illiteracy. That is the key to powerhouse and to get people elevated and independent. Anyway, people, I feel grateful for this opportunity.
Well, thank you very much. We thank you. We tried in 2010 and you were there with us. Mr. Abraham was there. We thank you all so much. I think Mr. Abraham wants to say a few words as well.
A pleasant good night to the Honorable Leader, Ms. Kamala. All protocols observed. In jockey backing on my former colleague, Mr. McIntyre. By the way, my name is Johnny Abraham, a retired senior superintendent with over 40 years experience. And I can safely tell you that when I was in charge of Central Division, the people could have slept with the house open. I will go on national television and I will warn the criminals to stay out of Central. And if they do come and they leave to tell the story, there's another story. And there is no leadership in the police service. And if the media pick it up and they want to chastise me, they could go ahead. I could stand up and say that anyway. And the reason for that is because some persons went and get elevated because of friendship, because of clique. Correct. I didn't want to use all those words. While I was on the ground fighting crime, they were studying. I used to lock down Central Division with 5 vehicles. 1 Centennial Junction, 1 by the roundabout Caroni, 1 Claxon by the fish market, 1 on the highway Claxon Bay. You can't come in from north, you can't come from south, you can't come from the east. No escape route. I had a walkie-talkie. People talk about micromanage. I used to micromanage every sergeant in my division. Morning, noon, and night. The thing about the whole police service now is that people afraid to take the challenge to the criminals. They have no leaders. They have no leadership. If you're hunting and your dog going to chase something, animal, and you're not following the dog will turn back. If you don't have a leader, you can't have followers. And without all proper security in a country, you can't have no investment. They have no motivation in the police service. And on top of that, 4%. Under the leadership of Ms. Kamala Pasabi Sessa, 14%. They get it back pay in 6 months. $1,000 extra on the salary. They was motivated more than ever. And I could keep going on and on and on. But the whole thing is that we must take back this country. And in order to do that, the police service have to have proper leadership and persons who are willing to make that sacrifice, to work night and day to bring back this country to peaceful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Abraham. Thank you so much.
Pleasant good evening to everybody. Madam Political Leader, Gigi, sorry about that. All protocols observed. You know it very well. Name is Anthony S.D. Harper. Group Scout Leader before Shogunas, South Secondary Scout Troop. And I want to tell all you something. I come from good parenting. Because you know why? My mother used to take charge of 2 boys. I and a younger brother who was a Coast Guard officer, who is a lawyer now. And we used to get licked with broad belt. If anybody know about that, my father was a cop. We used to get licked with broad belt because I grew up with our father. When we were small, my mother used to have us around our bed saying prayers every night. And we used to have our chores to do when we come from school. We had no time to watch no television. And Sunday morning, get up 4 o'clock from bed, say your prayers, take your bath, take your breakfast, go to church. When you come back, you have chores to do. And my mother used to tell us, she is in charge. She is the man and the woman in the house, not all you. Today, parents don't do that again. Parents are afraid of their children. So what is going on? Is the tail wagging the dog? Is the flag blowing the breeze? Something wrong. We need to bring back the family. Billy Paul said, bring the family back together again, and that is the only way we're going to have a good society. But the change, we have to bring back this lady inside in power. Because I as a scout leader, that is a leader. That is a leader. So we know what leadership is about. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Harper. Thank you.
Are we on? Oh, okay. Madam Bissessa,
Good
my respect to you.
Good evening.
Mr. Gary Griffith, my respect to you, Captain, and the rest of the panelists. I am the only foreigner, perhaps. I came all the way from New York, but I didn't really come for this illustrious event. However, I'm glad to be here. We are on crime. That's what it says, crime, not about family. When I was in the service in the U.S. Army, I saw the big guns they gave us to use. AR-15, M16, RPG, and all of these type. When I come to Trinidad and hear that the guns are all over the place, and they're coming in, and nobody knows how the guns are coming in, that's foolishness. Those guns are coming through the ports, and the Prime Minister and all those responsible people know where the guns are coming. Look, I read an article 2 days ago. A gentleman was selling in a roundabout. He had to leave and go to the United Kingdom. This is the place he was born. This is the place where his children was grown. This is the place where his life was. When you start a revolution in that form, you're going to have all your people leaving the country. That is not right. And what happened? Gary, what happened? The people in the prison are the ones supplying the guns, the ammunition, and the drugs. Because the guy in the jail, he had a cell phone. He made a shot, he made a call, he got somebody to do his job, and this guy has to run, and this guy's got killed, and they're killing the people, and nobody's doing anything. All we hear is talk and same, and laws and laws. What is laws going to do? We need action. We need action. You can only fight crime with fire. Fire only fights fire. You cannot be passive aggressive. The way we operating is, well, we can see what we can do, boy. We can see what we can do. It doesn't work that way. They have ammunition. We are going to arm ourselves, and we're going to do the job. I read today in the news that a country called Ecuador, he had a new president. He's just about 2 months old. They had a gang called the Los Choneros. The guy was in jail. He got out free and he walked away from jail, but because he controlled all the gangs in the country, they went into curfew. 60 days of curfew, instantly by Noboa in Ecuador. All of these crimes, they are copying it. They are bringing it home. You think crime by these boys running around and shooting people all over the place? It is organized crime. The big boys are bringing the drugs, and the drugs are causing the guns. Now, those big boys in the organized crime are not coming in the news media. They are down, suppressed, and controlled. The Prime Minister went to Canada on a CARICOM meeting, and he said, the police officers are dotish. Maybe he has some insight, but the police department, not the entire police department, is corrupt. But in that police department, there are a certain number of people who are corrupted. We have to get them out. We need the corruption of those people, and we need accountability. What we lack here is accountability. And every which way we go, nobody holds anybody accountable for anything.
Okay, bossman, let's give someone else a chance.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comments. Thank you so much.
Yeah, good day, Madam
Good evening.
Opposition. Everybody else, members of the listening public, I thought it absolutely necessary that I should make a statement. I'll get into that, comrade. You're running in front of me. You know it's a trade unionist, and I'll go and say it back. So take your time. All right. So having said that,
Let's thank trade unionist Ms. Annie said thank you for joining us.
Michael Annie said, so
thank
let
you
me
so
start.
much.
All right, because you see, comrades, brothers and sisters, I think it's important that we understand what we're dealing with. And the honorable opposition talk about the question of a curfew. That is something that we in the labor movement don't support. Because the issue to us in the labor movement, what is causing crime? And let me give some ideas. Are we aware that we had 12 Damas vessels in Trinidad and Tobago? All right, you had 4, and you will know that, were interceptors. Why we had interceptors? Because the drug trade brings in small vessels who do the trade. It's not the big container vessels. Okay, so you needed that. Within recent time, our Minister of National Security said that the vessels are not operating because of lack of maintenance. And nobody took that up as Trinidadians. Isn't that a responsibility, if we're serious about crime, to ensure that the question of those vessels that we spend so much money for is operating? Are we aware of how many ports we have in Trinidad and Tobago? Anybody pays attention to that? Some are unmanned ports, and you have airport and seaport, so we have to understand that. And if there's no control mechanisms for those ports, what happens? Because Trinidad, we must understand, is a transshipment point. Let me repeat it. Trinidad is not a producer of drugs. It is a transshipment point. And therefore, how do you operate a transshipment point? Is by bringing in the drugs and the guns through the port, the air, or the porous ports and them. What is the big science in ensuring that those ports are manned properly? Why the 356 radar system is not operational? Asking the question, those are things that we have to put in place, because that system was designed and came there to ensure that we have a whole radar screen so we could pick up any illegal drugs, vessels coming into Trinidad. Ask yourself the question, why that is done in Trinidad and Tobago if we're serious about crime? So the first thing we have to lobby for is not the opposition leader, is we collectively to ensure those matters are put in place. How you have a port? And let me hustle them quickly. Are we aware that after the 9/11, there's a code, the International Shipping and Port Facility Security Code, that speaks to the safety of the port, which is mandatory. And there are measures that are in place that the ports must follow. And if you follow that, because it's the American system, we wouldn't have issues, you know. How do you account for the fact that Trinidad that has so much money, we are no scanners boy on the port? Now, who is responsible for that? Who is responsible for that when we understand what drives the question of drugs in Trinidad and Tobago? And just for those who don't understand, you see, they have kingpins in this country, you know. And you see, you're talking about state of emergency. I learned when they cut the head off, that is the end of everybody, you know. And until we in Trinidad see who everybody know, who is involved in the drugs, are locked up and make a jail, we will be here every day talking. Because they fueling the drug trade. And let us be frank. Is it the little boy in Laventille? Is it the little boy in Point Forte? You understand? Because that is a international trade that is parallel to the world trade. And we have to understand that. You know, before this man died, Pablo Escobar, all you remember him? Read and see. Forbes magazine had him down as the 7th richest person in the world. Understand what we're saying, you know? And we have a lot of that in Trinidad. They have a lot of money because of that. And they use certain places to wash that money nice to continue the trade. And we can't solve nothing. You could lock down, you could say state of emergency, unless you deal with those issues with the greatest respect that I am raising, we cannot have any solution. And I agree with you, you know, that the issue starts with all of us. All of us here. We cannot have a knee-jerk reaction when something happens. I am getting frightened. You know why? And I will end with this point. There's something that called nihilism. That we getting so insensitive to crime now. That if we have 3 murders, we're not worrying anybody again. That is a sad psychological state for any society. You understand, to reach in, you know. When we accept murders and we talk about this, 1 murder is too much boy in this country. I know what I'm talking about because we just have to deal with that as a trade unionist. Because the people who are gunned down by the very same brothers and them all because they want a stripe. And I will end by saying, crime is something funny. You see that thing would happen with recently with a store that making so much money, and because they have a minimum wage, which we don't agree with, we want a living wage. And because it moved to 2050. You know why it's 2050? $356, 3,000 rather, $556.65 a month. Who could live on that? Who could live on that? And if I'm a young guy, and I growing up, and all this government want to push is fast foods, what you're going to expect the youths to gravitate towards? When I could go on, do a little thing on the block and get $5,000 US. Understand what I'm saying, you know. So we have to build a better society and aim for a better society where education really means something. I hear my learned friends spoke about it. And I know about that because they come to Seaman's Union. They have degrees and they can't get work in this country. Idle minds happen. What happens to idle minds? The Bible talk about that. And for all those who believe and who does talk about the scripture, let me end by saying that God helped them who helped themselves. So you could pray now until next year. You could call for more prayers. If you don't help yourself, well, then we're in problems. Thank you, brothers and sisters. Thank you.
Thank you. We had 2 elderly gentlemen waiting since the beginning. In the
Okay,
back.
Anil, thank you. We are coming almost to the close, so we'll just take a few more speakers. Those of you who did not get an opportunity to speak but wanted to speak, I think they passed around the Q&A cards, so feel free to leave your comments before you go. And as we take the final persons, Anil,
Yes, thank you very
when
much.
we are
Thank you.
finished, then we will ask each panelist to wrap up. Professor wants to say something, so can we hold, please?
Thank you.
I could remember many years ago in Jamaica, I spoke to the deceased Keith Sobian about the parallel economy that exists within the Caribbean. You know, there is the oil and gas economy that supports Trinidad and Tobago, but there is a bigger economy, what we call the parallel economy, which Mr. Anisette just spoke about. And I think that is part and parcel of the crime situation that we are experiencing here. There's a lot of money that comes in from the drug trade. A lot of money. And as I was mentioning, we need to stem the flow of that money by cutting off the guns, by manning our ports, because that economy destroys the normal, natural economy in Trinidad and Tobago. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Professor. Anil?
Yeah, thank you. All protocol observed. I want to say that I was in this political thing a long time ago. I joined politics with Carl Hudson Phillip and the ONR born in my home. And I want to say one thing to Gary. Mr. Gary, I have to level the handle and call you Gary because I am older than you, I'm 84. So, please. And I want to tell you from 1956 to 2024, you was the best and still the best commissioner of police we ever seen. Yeah. I think also talking more than that, he deserves that, you know. Give him a good round of applause. I heard one good statement here tonight by one of our main speakers up there, asking the parents here to supervise those children. Supervise your children, because you don't know what they are doing. My days gone by, my father worked and my mother was at home looking after the children. They ain't got that no more. Father and mother is working. They have no time for children. And this is what I'm asking you people to do. Supervise your children, please. Our next thing is that, what about our Constitution? We're supposed to protect us. Freedom of speech, freedom of place in which to live. But people jump in your fence. They jump in your fence and causing all kind of confusion. Breaking your door and shooting your children while they sleep. I can't get Tishara and Hamil Smith any wrong, you know. Because that was going on now, jump the fence. And if they had hold me for that, I'd tell them, look, listen, I want to see one of the greatest leaders we had, you know, seriously, and done the talk. Anyhow, my contribution tonight will cut short because thank God to Mr. Anil and Mr. Beg. They know me well, they'll be home by me, and I'm privileged to have this. And I want to advise these people here. We're talking about crime. Solution to crime. The only solution we have for this crime, vote the PM out. Vote them out. I want to say thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And we now have Mr. Rondell Fields.
Good night, everyone. I'm Rondell Fields, President of the Single Fathers Association of Trinidad and Tobago. I try my best not to talk tonight, but it really impressed me to come here today and see a mixture of people a mixture of races, a mixture of ages, a mixture of men and women. And it says something that we all have a concern. We all have a fear, as some people said. And one thing I think we need to focus on honestly as people is that we need to find a way to unite. That, I think, is one of our critical issues. It hurts me as a Trinidadian sometimes to see how we treat each other as African and East Indian people, as Trinidadian people. We have to find a way that we can unite genders, find a way we could unite the races if we need to move forward with anything. I understand the strategies, I understand the crime plans, I understand the social issues part, but we have a real big problem in Trinidad and Tobago. Go on Facebook and see it. The kind of venom as African and East Indian people that we just spew behind each other. But look at us here tonight, because we all have the same common issue, boy. We can't start to talk about no crime plan until we start to talk about loving each other. That is where the issue is. That is why we families broken up. You feel I just study if an East Indian man come to help me see his son? Of course not, because I understand the value he have in that youth man life. We will always speak something we challenge with. I heard this statistic for 2022 and I know it well. 605 people murdered. 550 of those were men. 550. Men are the most murdered thing. And it's men kill them too. And as an African man, I could tell you, 65.5% of those that were murdered were men. And African men kill them too. But there is another problem. Though those statistics are true, and I had to say it, although it vexed with me, they are not murderers because of their race. You think it's because they're black? Or you think it's because they are men? Crime isn't race specific at all. It is the environment they're exposed to. If we were to say inherently crime is race specific, then I will kill somebody then. Then my brother Wade Mark could kill somebody if we seen murder in that aspect coming from the African community. If it was so, if crime was race specific, am I to automatically think that every East Indian man is prone to domestic violence because the figures might be higher in that regard? I'll be a fool to think so also. Why we don't come together and help teach each other? It means something possibly in the African family they need assistance with. And if the East Indian people are raising the children in a particular way and you're not seeing them murder us, maybe we could learn from you all. And maybe you could learn from us too. If we not killing our wives sometimes and killing ourselves after and are talking real, don't vex with me, you know. Maybe we could learn from each other, boy. Why we can't do that? Because we have a difference in a diversity in political affiliation, or because we have a different race. Why we just allow our diversities divide us and allow people to divide us too because we are diverse? When our diversity is what does make us Trinidad, boy. You feel like you don't love Korea from Kunupia, and I surely like Kalalu too. We have to find a way to unite. I can't hate my brother here. I can't hate you. We had to find a way to do that, and that is the root problem. Our issues are crime is bad social behavior. That is what crime is. And I agree with all these strategies. I know my boy Dr. Gary have strategies for them. But long and short of the story, it must have that social element too. One thing I didn't like what Superintendent McIntyre didn't include is the social work that took place when he and Mr. Abraham was doing the hard work on the ground. All the NGOs came together in Central to work in enterprise. Everybody formed community-based organizations. Right now, they're still functioning. Dash Rate Youth Empowerment Committee, Crumchurch Youth Empowerment Committee, Bridging Castle Youth Empowerment Committee. Because the people wanted to change their own community. So once...
Thank you from Single Fathers. I can hear your emotion.
I'm going on done.
One moment.
Okay.
What you said, I know Ms. Abraham has been a very, very hard-working, successful officer. So perhaps for our next crime consultation, should we invite him to be one of the presenters?
Yeah, man.
Okay. If you can wrap up, please, yeah.
So once again, my Trinidadian people, let us learn to find a way to, love each other genuinely, or else crime wouldn't done.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Douglas is the way.
So
Thank you very much, and we humbly apologize to those who did not get to ask a question. We now go to the head table for their wrapping up summation for this first 2024 anti-crime town hall meeting. Over to the head table.
Anil, there's someone here. Anil, see what's happening here. Anil O'Brien, can you just speak with this person? You could take his name and contact so we could contact him. Okay, can we come back to the panelists as we come to the end? And shall we start, please, with Mr. Rodriguez? Winding up and wrap him up. Nicholas, you have a mic? Here. Thank you very much. Kevin, at the end, we can play the video that you should have played at the beginning, if it's available. At the end. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Rodriguez, thank you again. And closing remarks.
Good evening again, everyone. I am once again honored for this opportunity. But if you took nothing from my brief presentation, please take this. Parents, big brothers, and the men especially, I challenge you today to start telling your kids, your nephews, your daughters, your sons that you love them. Start showing them love and appreciation from home first, so it can be a barrier from the outside elements being able to attack their minds. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rodriguez. Dr. Ramprasad.
Well, so much has been said. I think everything has been said. We know the causes, we know the consequences, we know the solutions. I think there's only one thing left to say, and I'll put on my trade union hat here, trade unionist hat. Mr. Anisette, power to the people. People, you have the power to make the difference. All this crime and so much apathy. You know, we fought for the right of association in the 60s. Okay? We have now that right to protest. Crime is affecting our daily lives. We live in mortal fear. We can't just talk about it. So let us start to act. We have to put pressure on the powers that be to deal with this problem. Okay? So people, rise up. It's time for action.
Thank you, Professor.
Yeah. I must thank the Honorable Opposition Leader for the opportunity to speak today. Crime is a monster in our society at this particular time. And we need everybody to get into the action to stop this. Because if we do not stop this, then Trinidad would die literally. We are not going to have investors come here. The investors who are here are going to leave. The brain drain is going to be part of the problem. We would not even have tourists coming here for Carnival. So we need to put our heads together and fight this monster. We need to protect our borders so that the guns do not come in. But while I am saying all of this, we must understand that this is not an easy task. As I mentioned before, many of the economies in the Caribbean are run by this parallel economy, and this parallel economy is greater than our economies, right? So we must understand that it's going to be a very, very long and arduous battle to get rid of this monster from our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Larry, please.
Okay. Hey. Thank you, Opposition Leader. And again, so just to close, again, we've heard a lot. I want to give you all the assurance it can change. I want to re-emphasize the catalyst for crime reduction is the implementation of government policies. In the last 31 years, every time a certain political party is in government, crime goes up. Anytime another political party is in government, crime goes down. That is a fact. That is not coincidental. And it has to do with the political will, the policies, and the people. We put in, and even to the members of the diplomatic corps here, you all would recall, as Commissioner of Police, we put a sophisticated operational command center. We were monitoring all of your places. We gave you a hotline in case of any situation. That has collapsed. It shows total disrespect to you, Your Excellencies, that we were looking after you all with an operational command center protecting you and other persons in your embassies. And that is what we have to endure. What we would have seen from 2010 to 2015 was a turnaround, and we pegged back the criminal elements from a national operations center that was recommended by the Commission of Inquiry into the attempted coup. It was coordinating everything. We had a 5-minute response. We had a highway patrol unit. We had an emergency response patrol, a rapid response unit, a national security special operation group, a training academy, GPS tracking on vehicles. We had operations centers in even the divisions that you just spoke about, sir. So we had the people, the training, the technology. We were getting hovercraft, we were getting armored personal carriers, we were getting drones. We got dormant vessels at a cost of $1.2 billion less than 3 defective OPVs that could have done the same thing. We were getting interceptors. I close by telling you it can change, but you need the political will. If those that are in government are unable to provide that, then we are ready to replace them. Well, I'll take a quote by a certain political leader. If you're in government and you cannot solve the problem, then you are part of the problem and you need to go.
Thank you all very much for a very interesting evening. As I said, this is the first of many, and we trust that others can join us as we move along. Trust us, we will not just stop here today. We will take the comments, the suggestions, and the ideas. If there are others who wanted to contribute and could not, please free to send it to the Office of the Leader of the Opposition, your comments and your suggestions. I just want to share a little story. We have shared with you from our platforms several anti-crime plans. I will not repeat those tonight, but I just want to share a story that will allow me to repeat one of them. A friend of mine spoke with me earlier in the evening, but more like this morning, late last night, this morning, and was telling me about a friend of his family where bandits had attempted to invade their home, and they were all inside of the house, and he heard his wife start screaming, and then he saw on the camera that there was a home invasion of sorts, and then he said all he could think about was Kamla. Now, it may not be for the reason you think, but all he could think about was Kamla, because what? He had a gun. And he said he had to think twice. Should he use a gun and then be charged for murder? And then he said he remembered Kamla. Against
This Monday, KPB Plus leads a powerful anti-crime town hall at the La Jolla Complex, Eastern Main Road, St. Joseph. Hear from key experts, Professor Hubert Daisley, Dr. Indira Rampersad, Gary Griffith and Enrique Rodriguez, along with testimonials from real people, including victims whose lives are changed forever. Plus, at Inside of the UNC Crime Plan with political leader Kamla Prasad B. Crime affects everyone. Anti-Crime Town Hall, La Jolla Complex, Eastern Main Road, St. Joseph. Live stream on all platforms. This Monday, KPB Plus leads a powerful anti-crime town hall at the La Jolla Complex, Eastern Main Road, St. Joseph. Hear from key experts, Professor Hubert Daisley, Dr. Indira Rampersad, Gary Griffith and Enrique Rodriguez, along with testimonials from real people, including victims whose lives are changed forever. Plus, at Inside Look at the UNC Crime Plan with political leader Kamla Prasad Bisesa. Crime affects everyone. Anti-Crime Town Hall, La Jolla Complex, Eastern Main Road, St. Joseph. Live stream on all platforms.